Hello and welcome to the Creators and Experts podcast. My name is Denali, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Joanna Rajendran. She is an author, a keynote speaker, and a distinguished coach. And we'll get into all of that a little bit more in the coming conversation. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited for this chat.
I am too. So, I think a great place to start that I like to start with all my interviews is just how did you get started creating content?
Well, the content was probably a side effect of a really cool, windy path. I've made a habit in my adult life of making my passions into my professions. So as a result of that, I've done many things and worn many hats. They all seem to have led to this moment in time, doing the combination of exactly what I'm doing now. And one of the biggest inspirations along the way was being introduced to who would be my mentor for the next few decades. At the age of 17, I met the world's oldest yoga teacher in a chance meeting, walking into a yoga class, spent the next 20 plus years with her, studying yoga with her, assisting her, traveling around the world with her. And that relationship shaped and influenced just about every aspect of my life, personally, professionally, even romantically. And with her, I was certified to teach yoga. I became an expert on mindfulness and meditation. And while she was still here, I had dreams of sharing all of this magic. If anyone took a course with her or a workshop, just walking into the room, they were instantly hit with the light, the magic, the aura that she had. And I thought, wow, I've almost had these backstage passes. How do I share the in-betweens, all of those delicious nuggets that I soaked up from watching her and being with her? And one day, inspiration led me to some weird places, like being on a date with my dude, getting a foot massage, and all of a sudden the entire book came to me. The topics, the format, everything. And I looked at him and I said, I finally got it. I know the book I'm supposed to write about my friendship with Tao. Her name was Tao Porchon-Lynch. I always want to give her honor. And I said, and I feel like I have to write it now. I think each chapter needs to start with one of her famous quotes and then go back and forth in our timelines and tell both of our stories so that people, while inspired by her magic, can relate to my flawed and real character. And then they'll get the takeaway that the magic is in all of us and it's for everyone. And he said, that sounds great, but put some notes in your phone and write it later because we're going to a concert after this. And it was Justin Timberlake.
That's wonderful. And I think a really good background to who you are as far as your expertise and everything. I think that really, really helps to kind of lay it out. So as you developed that book, were there any challenges that you found that you might be able to share with some other creators that might be able to help them in their own kind of creative endeavors?
I would love to. Any challenges is a funny way of putting it, Denali, because I wrote this book while my mentor was alive, and I wanted it to ring true, whether she was or wasn't when the reader read it, because she lived until she was 101. So I knew we were playing with house money at that point. So I finished the last page of my own personal edit of it the day she passed away. And I received the message when I was on a chairlift on a family ski trip to Colorado with my sister, literally floating above the clouds and the snow-tapped trees. And at 11:11, I play a voicemail that she had peacefully passed. And that was the day that I finished my last edit. A year to the day, the first anniversary, my professional editor finished his last edit and the book would come out. But in the time intervening, the entire world shut down and the pandemic happened. So when you are writing and then seeking to publish your first book or whatever your creation is in a time where it's a season of no, and in this case, it was an exaggerated season of no. Professionals didn't know what would happen with the profession. They didn't know if bookstores would be open. A lot of publishers were saying no to new authors. And to that, I say to anyone who is inspired, has an idea, a creation, an art, something they want to share, that is your gift to this world. That is your unique purpose, and do it. You don't need a season of yes. You don't need everyone to get it. You need the right yes. And I found one great yes who said, I think you wrote a cool book here. I think you have a great message to share. We could go to all the big houses, and if they're not open to it, I would be proud to publish your book. And so I just found the one right yes and followed that stream of belief and faith and allowed it to flow where it was meant to be.
That's a really good way of looking at things. And I think, especially in the content creator sphere, you get a lot of those no's, and finding that path of people that really believe in you or believe in your vision is really beneficial. I kind of want to dig there a little bit on that chairlift when you received that call. Did you make the choice to later that day finish writing, or had you finished writing earlier that day and kind of finished your edit?
I had finished earlier that day, and
Wow.
I was riding the chairlift, actually not even to ski, to meet the kids to go tubing down a mountain. And I
Huh.
just thought, how do you tube down a mountain when you just received life-changing news? And then I remembered the life-changing news was about the person who inspired me to do all of the things, to do it, to live, to never take a moment for granted. One of her biggest messages was that the only sin was procrastination. And there was no procrastinating. They were going down the mountain on the tube. I was either going to be there and experiencing it with the children in our family, or I wasn't. But no matter what, my circumstances weren't going to change, and I had to get down that mountain anyway. So why not do it by tube with smiles through my tears?
I think that's a phenomenal way of looking at it. And to kind of go even further into that, you mentioned, you're a certified yoga instructor, and you were writing this book at the same time, and then COVID hit. How did you kind of navigate, balancing not only, I mean, writing is a full-time job. So how did you navigate that with the yoga with COVID?
And I had two kids at the time. I still have two kids, Denali. So at the time of all of this, I had my daughter is now about to be 11 and my son is 5. So at the time, they were even younger, and he was a toddler and she was already in school. So when the world shut down, I was also homeschooling them. So adding that wrinkle into the mix was another one. And the truth is, people will talk about balance, they'll talk about multitasking. I don't really think multitasking exists. I think you're just doing many things less well. What I chose to do, and what I found to be more effective, is to single-mindedly focus on one thing and then switch. How quickly you have to switch between the tasks vary depending how crazy life is. And at that time, it was crazy. So instead of resisting the crazy, we leaned into it. And as a result, our entire life changed. And I'm one of those people, I say this carefully and with respect, because I understand that many people had life-altering circumstances because of the pandemic that weren't positive. In our case, we recognized that it wasn't working, trying to homeschool where we were, seeing no end in sight. And my dude looked at me and said, maybe we should drive down to Florida for a couple of weeks. And I said, with 2 little kids, are you crazy? From New York, mind you. And he said, yeah, let's just take a break from all of this. Are you really going to do a whole summer like this with no summer camps? What is it going to be like? So we thought we were coming for 2 weeks to hang out on the beach. We ended up staying the summer and then the year. And now I live on the beach in Florida. And right here, I have to close the curtains, which is a beautiful blessing, because the ocean and the beach is so bright right here that it could be kind of a tease on Zooms.
Talk about a winding road. So, yeah, not only balancing COVID and writing and yoga instructing, but also managing having little kids, which is also a full-time job in itself. So we just listed what, 3 full-time jobs?
Yes.
Um, I want to switch gears a little bit here. So we talked about kind of being an author and what that's like a little bit. To transition from being an author to keynote speaking and then also to having your foot in with Instagram, with TikTok, and you have quite the footprint there as well. So how did those skills transfer? Did they all transfer? What'd you have to kind of relearn? I'm getting that.
I love this question, Denali, because I always forget my age, and it's because my daughter punked me. I'm 46. I'm fairly confident I'm 46. Last year when I turned 45, my daughter kept saying, my mom just turned 46. And she said it so often that she had me doubting my own age. So now when I say it, I just have to fact check myself. I'm like, yeah, this time I actually am 46. So I am 46. So the whole constantly evolving landscape of social media doesn't always seem like the most natural language to me. I don't love all of the tech aspects of it, but I do love the result. I love the connection. I love connecting with people in a more authentic way. I don't mean making your real, like the highlight reel of life. I mean those times the other day when I got the cutest video of my 5-year-old saying, "What the fuck?" I mean those real moments so that people can see you live a spiritually evolved, fun, present, connected life. And yet sometimes there are just moments, honest moments of what the fuck. That to me is real. That is the whole honest experience. Some things that was more of a challenge for me to translate. And to speak to that, I haven't been teaching as much yoga on the mat since COVID. I didn't love teaching as much virtually. I did it because I wanted to connect with my family, friends, and students who were still in New York. But I found that the blessing of the book was that I was able to share all of the wisdom, the beliefs, the breath, the mindset aspects, and take it off of the mat and into the world and greet a larger audience. So it lent itself very naturally in the book tour opportunities and the speaking engagements. I felt like the messages were still the same that I would teach in the studio. Yet now the person who didn't consider themselves a yogi was open and receptive to hearing it. So that led naturally into more speaking engagements and then the keynote speaking opportunities. And ultimately, I put together a compilation of my favorite workshops and retreats, things that I had taught or taken over the last few decades, and put a course together called Best Life Ever. And that has been a happy accident. Because of COVID, it started in a digital format. So I don't know, Denali, have you ever been on some kind of immersive retreat or weekend experience or even a one-day workshop?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I've done it for jujitsu yeah.
I love it. My daughter has jujitsu tonight. That's a new thing that happened at the beach. Well, what happens is you go to these immersive experiences, which I think is a fantastic way to learn, shift, find space. Sometimes I would experience what I call a retreat hangover, where I would go back into my regular life and wonder how I could feel that here. What happens when real life comes in? You know, I just ate with a vegan chef and meditated every day and was connecting with nature. And then I got a flat tire and my sink was full of dishes. Now what? So why I love this course so much is we meet once a week virtually, and then people have the 7 days in between to live these action steps and live the tools that we're talking about in the context of their real life. The only missing piece, and this is what the hub is about, is for the people who didn't have the time or the resources or the finances to commit to this weekly live course, but still wanted the results. That's when Kahana came in. We started chatting about, okay, it's time for a self-guided version of this where people can walk themselves through with videos made with love and get all of the nuggets and do it at their pace in their time where they are. And the only thing I didn't want to do, which won't surprise you after hearing what I just said, was the actual tech part behind offering that. So I partnered with Kahana, and we're creating the self-guided version of Best Life Ever so that anyone and everyone can experience it.
That's wonderful. And I think that accessibility aspect is really cool too, because, people have different levels of, time commitment, money, and really being able to offer it in that way is incredibly kind of you. And that's really great. One thing I want to shift gears a little bit, and you seem like a perfect person to ask this question. What is some advice that you would give to someone that, is smart, is driven, be it in college, be it right after high school, maybe your kids in a few years, that would help them kind of ignore this idea of the real world? Or what should they kind of get around, if that makes sense?
Oh, that makes so much sense. You accidentally nailed this, by the way. I mentioned that my kids are younger, but I called my niece my firstborn, and she's a college student. And she and her friends would FaceTime me and do yoga, or we'd be chatting. And I'd say, oh, I have to go. I have my course tonight. So one day she was explaining the course to her sorority sisters, and they said, we think we need this course. And they were part of the motivation to offer it in a self-guided way, because I just wonder if I had these tools to navigate life. I found my path to spirituality, to wanting more, being, doing, having, giving more when I was 17. And that sounds nice and young, but it was just the beginning of the path. I didn't have the tools that would help me really navigate. And by the way, my path began from a really, really dark place. The first page of my book says I was feeling thankful for my rapist. Please note that your happy ever after doesn't have to begin that way to end that way. So whether you're on a path of finding who you are personally, professionally, emotionally, spiritually, it's not a straight line, nor should it be. That would make the human experience a lot duller. So for this rich, complete experience, how do we know what the real world is and if it's worth entering or ignoring? One of my favorite concepts is to stop shoulding all over ourselves. And I said that the other day, and my daughter went, ooh, she thought she was catching me. And I said, no, honey, should. If you listen to how many times, oh, I really want to go to the beach, but I should be doing this work. I really want, but anything that starts with that should instantly feels like a chore, an arduous task. So when you have that get to instead of have to kind of life, that I knew I was chatting with you today, and I said, oh, I get to do an interview and talk about my favorite things. It's not I have to, I get to. I get to do this looking fancy on top, and I'm wearing comfy shorts on the bottom. I get to play pickleball and live like I'm retired. And I realized last night, wow, what a gift it is to live and create an energy around our family where so many people wait till they're retired to start to travel, to start to relax, to find new hobbies, to really enjoy where they are and who they're with. If you can create, and spoiler alert, you can, if you can create where people don't really know when they first meet you, if you work, what you do for a living, and they know who you are and how you are before that, that is a recipe for joy. So I love that my balance is such that many people that I hang out with all the time have no idea what I do. But when they find out, they're like, oh, that's cool. It took being okay with being different for a long time. It took being okay with being weird. I had my whole family with whom I'm super close make fun of me forever. Oh, well, Joe doesn't have a real job. She could pick you up from the airport. And that was true. I can pick you up from the airport. Because often for creators, what you are building is not something that is necessarily understood or recognized by those around you. And that's okay. Just like I said earlier, you don't need the world of yes. You need your inner knowing, and you need a few strategic yeses. Maybe it's your partner who gets it. Let's build this together. Maybe it's because you have to have a financial conversation about the building. Maybe it's a partner in work and you get it and you build it together. And also with that, being flexible enough, committed to your vision and flexible in how it's going to be expressed. Because years ago, when I was studying with Tao to teach yoga, I didn't know that it would go exactly where it's gone so far. And yet none of it has surprised me. And now the next vision is the book, My Guru Wears Heels, since my mentor did all of these amazing things, marching with Gandhi, Martin Luther King, being an advocate for peace, an activist in World War II, a cabaret dancer and a model and actress. She also was a competitive ballroom dancer in her 80s because she needed a new challenge. She did it all in high heels. So the heels that hold my books together, they're just for show. She did it all in heels. I usually do it barefoot. But you want to know that your visions will sound crazy to other people, usually up until the point they're congratulating you on them. And now I have my sister, who's my best friend, who said, I'm not going to dull or shrink her dreams ever again, because I spent my whole life telling her she's crazy and then celebrating with her as they've happened. So now I'm just on board and already buying my dress for the premiere version of the film or television version that the book will be turned into.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
I think you've done a phenomenal job answering my questions. You've knocked out 3 or 4 questions. Like, I don't even have to ask all the questions I have because you're nailing them all. The one I want to ask you before we close up here, because I do want to be respectful of your time, and I am taking this from another interviewer. His name's Tim Ferriss, and he likes to ask this question: is if you could put one phrase or sentence on a billboard for everyone to see with the highest reach, what idea would you want to get out there?
There are really 2. Can I have 2?
You can have 2.
Yay, I get 2 billboards. Okay. Billboard 1, and neither are original. So just like you took the question from an interviewer whose question you loved, neither of the quotes are mine. The first one is Gandhi's: to really be the change you wish to see in the world. If you want a world of world peace, work on feeling peaceful as a person. Because what is world peace? It's a world made up of people who feel peaceful. So that big global change you're seeking can start with an individual one. On a very practical level, if you don't want to live in a world filled with dirt and you pass a wrapper, pick it up. So it's just those really small ripples that change the world. And then the other one was straight, it's in my book, it was straight from my teacher, Tao. And she used to say that she would wake up every day and decide, today is going to be the best day of my life. And it's why I call the course Best Life Ever. And it's why I end every email with have the best day ever, because that's your choice every single day, to wake up and know today is the best day of my life, because this is the only day we're living. We're either reflecting upon or anticipating the other ones. This is the only one we're currently actually living.
That is wonderful. I think those are 2 amazing quotes. And I want to just bring it to a close. So if there's anything else that you would like to add, please feel free. And thank you so much for joining me today. I will link your hub and your link tree and social media all in the kind of comments for this video. So thank you so much.
I love that, Denali. I have, is if anybody's interested in trying meditation, you don't know where to start, if you go to my website, which is my name, joannarajendran.com, and you put your email in, you'll instantly be sent a free guided meditation from me. So you could start there. And the other question that I'm asked that I'm not sure if I did a good enough job explaining here is, if you're wondering, this self-guided version of Best Life Ever or the weekly version, why would you want to take it? What would be in it for you? We really do habits of happiness and habits of success. So there are things where you experience profound transformations by really simple and focused activities that change your life in real time, so that it's not studying for years and then hoping to feel or get somewhere. It's really just immediately effective mindset shifting actions.
Well, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Had the best day ever.
You too.